Can I ask that we talk to Patricia? Patricia was on my stream earlier, and I want to say hi.
Absolutely. Patricia, what can we do for you?
Hello. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Thanks for calling in.
So basically, my best friend has a younger sister who is high school age. She's recently been watching a lot of anime, which, plenty of people do. And my partner recently started watching some of the same shows that our friend's sister has been watching and noticed a bit of a troubling pattern in these shows, that they have a lot of scenes that are sexual in nature and very much blur the lines of consent or are overtly non-consensual scenes. I know that consensual non-consent is a kink that some people are into, and that's cool. But I'm just worried because she is young, she's in high school, and I want to make sure that she has access to resources to know how to go about that in a safe way if that's something she's interested in. But I'm also not super close to her, so I'm trying to figure out how to talk to my friend about it in a way that she could talk to her sister about it.
Well, that's definitely a difficult position to be when you see a need, but are kind of stuck in that daisy chain position. And yeah, we can get a fire brigade together and, we can do this show and try to give out a bunch of good information and links and resources. And then you can take it and try to hand it off, and then they can try to hand it off, which, I certainly want to attempt. But I just want to acknowledge how difficult it is when there's that much distance. Is there, much space for the people in her life to approach her about these things?
So her sister is pretty open. They seem to have a pretty good relationship. And she definitely has, I think, the younger sister is involved in like the GSA at her high school. So she's definitely exposed to kind of queer, sex positive views, which is good. But I don't know, outside of that, I'm not really sure.
Sure. Well, I don't know about the two of y'all, but I can't help but feel like rather than focusing on consensual non-consent and these like different forms of sexuality, it may be best to just start with the genuine article and sort of highlight the necessary elements of consent. And then point out what is consent, what's not consent, and anything that gets rolled into that, I think, will kind of help clear this up. I would definitely point you towards Sex Positive Families. Sexpositivefamilies.com is a great resource with a number of different books and videos and articles and all kinds of things about how to have these kinds of conversations. But I'm curious what the two of y'all might be seeing in all this.
I believe that a viewing party is in order. You sit, or their sister sits and watches the favorite hentai together, and, well, they can then, when such nastiness comes upon the screen that you people like to do, can refer to it and speak of discomfort or comfort and consent and lack of thereof.
That's certainly an option. I also, seeing sexual content on screen as a family and destigmatizing that, I think by itself is a useful thing. I bond with way too many people over the idea of like having a sex scene on TV and like, oh, my parents are in the room. This is terrifying and awful.
Yeah, or like literally putting a blanket over the TV for certain scenes, or like fast forwarding when somebody gets uncomfortable. Like that kind of messaging is way more harmful. I'm not saying that you should watch, a very hot sex scene in an R-rated movie with your 8-year-old, but you probably shouldn't be watching an R-rated movie with your 8-year-old. That's maybe more the concern there.
Yeah, so I think the larger conversation here needs to be like Christy said, around consent in general. Trust your friend's kid. Trust that she. I think you said she, daughter, is going to be able to tell the difference once she has the information, right? And so the only thing that you can do, the only thing you could even possibly be expected to do, is to advocate for the dissemination of information for her. And then what she is going to do with that is really up to her and her parents. But as long as you are comfortable talking about consent and you talk with your friend about maybe getting her the resources she needs, that's really the most you can do probably in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, my partner and my friend, we're all very sex positive people. So when her sister's been around us, I think she's definitely experienced that. I think it's just something that, maybe she as a sister doesn't necessarily want to talk about. She's her younger sister, but I don't know. I definitely don't feel like it's my place to have that conversation. So...
Yeah, if it comes up organically in any kind of way, I do think that somebody outside of the family can really do a favor by not necessarily having the family stigma attached to them and all of these kinds of things. But I think it's almost doubly true then that by trying to force it, you can make things a whole lot worse because you don't necessarily have that built-in family, I guess we have to talk about this kind of thing. So, I'm not going to say at all that you shouldn't approach her. I would like to live in a world where people are more comfortable and more equipped to approach their own children about these things, because ultimately I do feel like that's where the primary responsibility should be falling here. But we certainly don't live in that world, especially not here in the States. So whatever you can offer, whatever you can suggest, just know that this is not your responsibility. And I hear that in your voice. I hear that you are just seeing a need and wanting to be as available as possible. But I hope that that doesn't come with a sense of obligation that isn't warranted.
Yeah, I think it's just, I know that she and my friend were both raised very Mormon. So she's kind of got this super extreme, don't even think about sex or that's a sin sort of perspective. And then to her sister, who's a very, very out lesbian and does not give two shits what anyone thinks about her sexuality. So I'm hoping that means she has some access to different ideas, but
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. That is a protective factor in a lot of ways, which is a strange thing to say. But the reality is our queer youth are having to self-educate. And in doing so, they're picking up potentially some harmful ideas. But I have to feel more hopeful than that. I see so many success stories, and I'm always incredibly impressed when I work with my teenage clients. The understanding that they have of vocabulary, of different signals and all of these different terms, it's really remarkable. And so while you can never just sort of sit back, I feel hopeful. And I'm glad to hear that she is able to express herself and identify in that way. And that she's got people like you in her life looking out for her, at least expressing concern.
Yes, Bible Black is perhaps not the most excellent sexual education, but it is better at least than the Texas Board of Education.
This is
Zing
true.
and true. So I'll point you again
New York,
towards
so they legally have to get good stuff.
Well, I'll point you again towards Sex Positive Families and make sure that link is in the show notes for this episode. But I hope that gives you just a little bit of insight. I know it's a really tricky thing to kind of walk into.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for calling. You have a great night.
Thanks, Patricia.
Be seeing you.
Thanks. You too.
That's so dark, Sarah. I love it.